Glamorizes 1099 roles, but in 2026, I'm going to break down why W-2 contract roles are more bankable, especially in this climate. So in the past, and I'm including in the people, I use freelance as a way to like get in different companies, to pivot. Roles were easily converting to maybe temp to perm. Contracts was extended. You might get like 12 months, and then, of course, if you've proven yourself and the budget is there, let's make sure you're able to convert. And I'm also a 1099 employee as well, right? But for some reason, and not for some reason, in this climate, contracts are not going out like that. However, there is still a massive need because companies are laying off. There is still a massive need for W-2 contractors. And just speaking from experience, probably out of 10 roles, 10 contract freelance roles, in the past, 5 would be 1099, and then the other 5 would be W-2. But in today's climate, with all of the budget cuts and the layoffs going on in different companies, the work doesn't stop. So they're not approving 1099 contracts like they used to, right? Because 1099 means that you are functioning more as an independent contractor, right? You already have your EIN number. You can use it to file off your taxes. You are self-employed in the sense of you carrying your own insurance. If your role entails, if you're a contractor where you may have to travel, right? You're working more remotely. Some companies will stipulate that you have your insurance. So these are like not old things, but new things that are kind of coming up now under this administration. Also, because it's so many layoffs happening, like I said, the work doesn't stop. So here's a chance why W-2 would be more bankable. I personally do both. But for some reason in the past years or so, I leaned more on the W-2 side just because, the budget's not getting approved. And if the budgets are not getting approved for 1099, which is more like like I said, you're more sending an invoice, getting paid every 30 days. And that's another thing they leave out. When you are 1099, your money got to be right, okay? Because you might not have time to wait 30 days for a company to pay you as an independent contractor. And hopefully, if you're a 1099 also, that's not your only gig that you have, right? Like companies, they can outsource you for maybe a certain part of the year, or maybe let's say Q4, right? Because like the budgets are ramping up. Marketing found out that they have all of this money that they didn't spend. If you're at an agency and they don't spend, then the client will be like, how come last year this was cheaper? Or, just thinking you're undercharging or overcharging. So you have to be kind of particular with that as well. But like I said, in this climate, now it's like 8 jobs or 8 roles are W-2, and then 2 roles are 1099. And it's because a lot of times the companies are not approving 1099 budgets like they used to, just because of, like I said, if you're working remotely, for some reason they're just approving W-2 faster. And I'm just putting this out there, like in this climate, you need to think about how you are moving strategically in this climate. I don't want to keep saying that, but it's true in this climate. So now let's talk about the perks. W-2 contracting is good because if you are only employed, say you're employed, the contract is for a year, or say like it's 6 months, and then 6 months, and then they're going to see if they can, the way the budget works, that they allocate, it's approved for like the first 6 months, but then the last 6 months they need to see, how, whichever way it's going to hit the budget. So meanwhile, if you're only in that 6 months, the company is already taking out unemployment for you, taking out your taxes, it's coming right out your paycheck. You're not responsible for your taxes. It's coming right out. They're also taking out your unemployment insurance, uh, everything that you normally would pay if you were a permanent employee at a company, right? Like all of your tax that that's coming out of your check. The only thing that's not coming out is your retirement, which is fine, right? Because a lot of people, if they, especially if you're from a freelance world or 1099 person, you already have other things in place to where you're saving your money. You're already putting into your investments, your retirement accounts. You may not need the company's 401k. However, if you are freelancing through an agency, they may have a 401k there that you can match. I tend to not do those. I kind of just do my own, but what works for me might not work for everyone else because some people are just not self-efficient, self-motivated, self-sufficient, and they may, they may not have the savings to kind of back them up as well. So if you fall on a W-2 side and say like the role was scoped for a year and then 6 months and they're like, oh, it's not working out with you, or maybe it's not working out with the company, or you may feel like this company or this role is not the best fit for you. It's, maybe the rate was they told you a certain rate and then you got in and like it's more work than the rate that they're paying you. And that's a whole different video. And that could be sometimes the agency, they're taking their portion, right, their cut, and then what's left over is what they are outsourcing out to you for your rate. And then some agencies have a higher markup, right? So like if one agency is taking 10%, another agency might be taking 15%. So a role that maybe is scoped at $90 to $100 an hour, by the time all of the taxes coming out, they're telling you that the role is only $60 to $65, right? So this is nuance with it as well. And that's why sometimes, like I see the route in both, right? Because 1099, the money's coming to you, right? So instead of 65 from an agency, 1099, I can say, okay, my bill is, my rate is 90 to 100 or 90 to 110, just to keep it kind of even and fair. That way, if they come back, because remember, when you're 1099, you're not the only person, you're not their only client. So even if you have work from them all of the time, everyone's still negotiating. And especially in this climate where, budgets are being slashed and the marketing budgets are not the same, operations budgets are not the same, brand budgets are not the same, just depending on what budget your role falls under. You can come against some hiccups. And that's why I was saying that in 2026, I feel like W-2 is back on the market, is back sexy again. It wasn't sexy in the pandemic era when, people were job stacking, where they were remote. And that's also why companies are trying to, they want to pay some people lower as well, because, just taking advantage of on social media, spreading too much, giving too much information. And these companies, they're on these social media platforms, just so you guys know. You have some jobs now that they'll even ask for like your socials, right? It's kind of like part of their, like definitely your LinkedIn, but some of them will ask for your socials as well, just to kind of see how you're moving, in these social media streets, and how does it pertain to your job. So again, that's why I'm saying it's more bankable. Another thing is like, since they're taking taxes out and you're paying unemployment, when tax time comes, if your role ends, you are eligible to get unemployment. I know in New York City, they changed it. First of all, they upped the unemployment, and they also now have a spot now where they're calling freelance roles like gig work. Before, if you got laid off from a company, you would have to prove like how many, are you interviewing every week? How many companies have you reached out to? This and this and that. So there's more flexibility happening in the economy as far as budgets, and I mean as far as them, you might not have to report your job work to them as often as you did in the past, where you kind of have to show. And it's funny because it's like, even though you're paying for unemployment, right? Like, it's coming out of your check. They're not doing you any favor. It's coming out of your taxes. Um, which is why I've also in the past met people that, not had to fight with unemployment, but they kind of did. But I'm like, no, look, you paid for this, ask for a hearing. When, go to the hearing, it may take a while, but you'll get all of that money back as well. As long as, like, you didn't do anything like company policy, like maybe, you sold something, yeah, something like that. Anything that's going against integrity, right? So that's kind of different. But other than that, yes, you pay for it. And like I said, in this climate with all of these companies are laying off. I just had a recruiter reach out to me recently and has like so many roles and was like, "Do you know anybody for these roles?" Just because in the past I've also helped people with roles, like I'm on Fishbowl and all that stuff, and just help them getting a lot of leads that sometimes come my way. And just because I just have a relationship with agencies for a long time, so I also get roles that's not for me as well. So I sometimes go in there and just be like, anyone looking for this, and then I kind of just post a role or just give them that website and email. But like I said, so that's why it's a good time now, because even though people are being laid off, right? Like, it's a sweep happening, right? Like, it's a sweep between the canceling of the DEI, all of that stuff. How many Black women were laid off? 300,000. It's a whole sweep. However, there is still contract budgets happening. There are still government contracts happening. There are still freelance budgets happening, because you know what? Like I said, the work doesn't stop. So if you're laid off from work, say your role is like mid to a senior role, and like you're laid off and you're part of the layoffs, that work is still there. Somebody still has to do that work. So this is when it's already in the marketing budget or the operations budget, the resourcing budget, for them to outsource freelancers, because they already know, like, then the VPs are not going to do the work, the directors are not going to do the work, they're going to outsource the work. So it's a good time, if you play your cards right, to take advantage and get something that can seem kind of even permanent, freelance, but for longer durations, or you're just really bopping and weaving and moving like a freelancer, which is how I did, which is how I came into freelance world. It helped me a lot because I was caught unstable and all of that foolishness, but I always wanted flexibility in my roles. You know, enjoyed making good money, but not being tied to the money per se. And so that's where freelance came in. So also you're not held to the standard of a permanent employee. Like, you're not going to be on like a PIP and all of that stuff because you're perm, right? So you can not take advantage, but you can use it to also see if you like the company, right? Because everybody looks good on paper, everyone's resume looks great, but until you are in that culture, in that climate, what's on paper or that rate, it may not work for you physically. So I don't want to ramble, but here we are. So that's why I'm saying how in 2026 it's a good time, because in real time I'm living this, I'm breathing this, it's coming in my inbox, it's in my LinkedIn, and companies are hiring. They're just not hiring full-time staff. They're hiring freelancing. Like, those budgets are already approved. We're in Q1, right? And then Q2 is going to be more money. So it's something that happens all year. And you can even go back to like in the 80s, right? Like, gig work was always popular, but it worked for like actors and dancers, and then because they wanted to put their craft first, so they just like, oh, I'll pick up a freelance. Or sometime, I know, because that's why I use it, like if I wanted to take a trip or something really quickly, and it's like, oh, this is going to be 5,000, I may pick up something for 4 weeks or whatever. Well, 2 weeks, right? Because it's 5,000. I mean, come on. But you know what I mean. That don't look at the numbers like that, because freelancer rate is also based on your years of experience. I know they out here telling you, quit your job, 1099, make six figures and all that stuff. You have to also have the client base to hit those numbers. And you're not the only one in that portal, right? You're not the only one. Like companies have, and I know because I'm part of the portal, they have freelancers that they can reach out to, like, oh, this person is good in marketing. I want her to come in and help us with the marketing team. This person is good in enterprise and organization. That rate would definitely be higher, right? Because you're dealing with banks, you're dealing with healthcare, so they would want to pay you a higher rate. And this is where you can also negotiate your skills as well. So again, I'm going to close out and say in 2026, you need to really seriously consider looking at W-2 contract roles again. Have a great